So Dawn of War 4 just had a pretty interesting detail confirmed by one of the developers, and it clears up something that people had noticed in earlier battle reports. Now, if you watched those battle reports closely, you may have noticed that after units were killed, there weren't really any bodies left scattered across the map. Instead, you would generally see some blood, some gore, and some bits left behind, and potentially some blood pools incredibly large covering portions of the ground. Now, this led some people to wonder whether persistent corpses had deliberately been removed from the game, and well, it turns out that it wasn't actually supposed to happen. So this news came up in the official Dawn of War 4 Discord when somebody mentioned that it was a little disappointing that battles seemed to leave pools of blood rather than actual bodies. Elliott Verbiest, though, one of the senior developers working on Dawn of War 4, responded and revealed that this is actually a bug. He said that bodies and vehicle wrecks are definitely intended to remain visible on the battlefield, and he even gave a bit more detail about what happened. He explained that the lack of bodies was actually an unintentional result of performance work that had specifically been done on corpses. Now, this caused the first two battle reports to only show the gore and blood left behind, rather than the actual bodies that were supposed to remain. So essentially, what we've seen in the battle reports isn't actually truly representative of how the finished system is intended to work. In any case, when infantry die in Dawn of War 4, their bodies should actually remain on the battlefield, and destroyed vehicles could even leave wrecks behind as well. I think this is actually a really nice detail for a game like Dawn of War 4, and I guess that's why it was flagged as a bit of a concern earlier on. Battles can go absolutely massive, and when you've got Space Marines, Orcs, Necrons, and Adeptus Mechanicus throwing entire armies at each other, having the battlefield physically change, scar, and actually have debris left behind as the fighting continues should make those engagements feel much more destructive. But now there is also one other detail that Elliott confirmed, which makes this even better. So someone asked whether an Imperial Knight, for example, or other vehicles could basically walk over their bodies and grind them into the ground. Now, Elliott actually confirmed that vehicles should be able to destroy corpses by moving over them. That's a pretty brutal little detail, but it fits Dawn of War perfectly. Imagine you've just had a massive infantry engagement with bodies scattered across the map, and then a tank, walker, or something as enormous as an Imperial Knight comes moving through afterwards. Rather than those corpses simply clipping through the vehicle or remaining untouched underneath, it sounds like they are actually supposed to be destroyed as the vehicles move over them. It's good to get the clarification, because without Elliott's responses, it would have been pretty easy to look at those first two battle reports and just assume, like many people did, that what we are seeing was a deliberate design decision to leave corpses out of the map. Instead though, we now know that persistent bodies and wrecks are intended to be a part of Dawn of War 4, and that the absence of them in the battle reports was simply a bug caused by performance optimization work. Of course, we'll have to see exactly how the system looks once the game is finished, especially when hundreds of units are all fighting at once, but the intended behavior sounds pretty promising. Dead infantry are intended to remain where they fall, destroyed vehicles could leave wreckages behind, and larger vehicles being able to crush corpses as they move across the battlefield should make battles feel that little bit more physical and destructive. And with Dawn of War 4 now having additional development time before its December the 3rd release, of course that was pushed back a bit, hopefully details like this are exactly the sort of thing that can be properly polished before launch. Hopefully as well, we may see some updated versions of battle reports. In fact, I believe they've said that could be coming, which is exciting of course, but what do you guys think? Do you think that persistent bodies and vehicle wrecks actually matter to you in an RTS? And do you want to see battlefields completely covered in the aftermath of huge fights? More importantly, how much destruction do you think something like an Imperial Knight should be able to cause just by walking through the battlefield? I wonder whether it will actually cause, for example, imprints on the map. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. As always guys, take care, and I'll see you next time.